セガサターンシロ。
What's up, everybody? Friday Shiro show with SaturnDave here, and I've got a bigger web browser today, keeping me company because Patrick Trainico is at a convention. Lucky Pat has all these cool game conventions in Arizona, I guess, and we're bereft of game conventions here in San Diego, to my knowledge. I mean, we've got Comic-Con, but there might be some like local get-togethers and stuff like that, but for all I know, we've got we don't have a whole lot of retro gaming conventions down here. But anyway, if I was to drive up to LA, that might be different. But anyway, so yeah, actually, I'm just shooting the shit today because Pat's not here. There's not a whole lot of news to talk about, but I've got my beer. Pat doesn't drink, but when I'm doing this by myself, I'm like, I gotta get a little bit of beer. I think Anthony Night of Dragon is in the chat with me. Anybody else who wants to, just kick it with me here for an hour and talk whatever Saturn news is on the table, that would be fine. I will do my best to try to look down here at the chat. And answer any questions that you have. In fact, feel free to hit me with questions today because I'm short on content. So, we can answer questions. We can talk about Shadow Mask needs to do his laundry. Get to it, Shadow Mask. And then we'll just talk about Saturn and whatever because that's what we do here. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and bring up the browser. Before I do, I'm gonna ask Anthony, what have you been doing this past week? On the spot.
I have been working and working. It's pretty much all I've been doing. I'm back at the office now, so no more hanging out as much. Yeah, working on Saturn stuff.
No more remote access. You're mostly having to go to the office.
Yeah, I gotta go. And then usually, since I have to go up there, I just head up to my girlfriend's place, so I'm rarely home anymore. Which is why, like, the past 3 shows I've been in my car.
Oh, right.
Traveling different places, yeah.
I wonder how much this is, get this whole end of the endemic phase and everything is gonna have a significant impact on people's productivity. At least their hobbyist productivity, because it's like I know a lot of us were like in full gear during COVID. It's like I was working from home and I was pretty much getting my work done in a few hours, and then I was like able to spend time doing Shiro stuff, but now it's like I'm lucky if I can get away for a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely a change of pace, even for me. So I can imagine other people getting back to work, they're losing their free time as well.
Yeah. I agree with Blue Moon, says I should make a Saturn Con in San Diego. You're absolutely right, I should quit my day job and make that my crusade, right? we have Ian Ferguson and Pat Contry down here in San Diego. They're the only like kind of popular YouTuber people that do like retro game stuff down here in San Diego that I know of. Now, if you drive up the 5 to closer to LA, the closer you get to LA and Orange County and stuff, you've got some folks, and then of course up in the Bay Area. But yeah, it's like all of the retro game focused stuff is up in Portland and Washington, so I don't know. Anyway, but it's, the weather's nice here, so I'll take it. And Lacquerware asked, what are my top 5 Saturn games? God, let's see. You had to put me on the spot like that. Well, my top 5, you're not going to agree with all of them, but obviously my favorite Saturn game, bar none, is Nights into Dreams. Whether or not it's the best Saturn game doesn't really matter. It's just my favorite, I have so much nostalgia for it, and it's a good game, okay? So it's a solid game. It's excellent. That score attack, you get into it, it's like Nirvana. You just kind of zone out. It's that kind of game that you can just kind of forget what you're doing and just really get deep into it. And so it's a great game, and I have a ton of nostalgia for it, so I would just have to say that that's always going to be my favorite. But I also really love Dragon Force, which is not a game that I came up playing at all. It's only a game that I started playing when I got back into Saturn stuff and doing Shiro show, and Chaz Picardi in one of the groups, and he's in our Discord, really got me into Dragon Force. And oh my God, immediately it went from like 0 to hero, in my list of like, how good is this game, But it is one of those games you have to like work over that initial reaction, and then it's absolutely insane. It's excellent. I love Lunacy. I really love Lunacy. I like quirky games. I love Twin Peaks. I love David Lynch stuff. I love really weird and quirky kind of eerie stuff. I love the Enemy Zero and the Warp games, like D2 and stuff like that. So I really love Lunacy. It just hits me in the right spot in terms of all that ambiance and the atmosphere and stuff like that. So thumbs up for Lunacy. I say probably that and Dragon Force take a share of the spot for my second favorite game on the Saturn. And then as far as 4 and 5, I would have to say probably a racing game like let's say Sega Rally. These days I tend to have more fun with Daytona just because it's crazy. The handling is just crazy, and it's a load of fun in an arcade kind of sense. But Sega Rally is really like, I don't know if you can do any better than that on the Saturn. It's got a really great feel. Probably do Sega Rally and then maybe Bomberman, Saturn Bomberman. That list is subject to change, because there are a lot of great games on the Saturn. But anyway, what about you, Knight? Do you have a favorite 5?
Like you, that list is always going to change, but obviously everybody knows my number 1. We're going to count them as one game, Shining Force 3.
Yeah. I can't believe I didn't just say that either, because that could easily take a top 5 spot. I just wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah. Outside of that, Dragon Force as well. I love the game, played countless hours with it.
Yeah.
Guardian Heroes.
Guardian Heroes is great.
Yeah.
Although some people really don't like it. I have to say, I wouldn't think Guardian Heroes would be a controversial or like what do you call it, like a polarizing game, but some people really hate the 3 planes, and the fact that it kind of chugs on the Saturn. But I think it's great, especially if you play the multiplayer mode.
Oh yeah, the planes never bothered me, and I just love the fact that you had tons of playthroughs over and over again. You weren't just playing the same levels. You could just choose your path depending on how you played it. You got your different characters, and there was just so much to unlock with the different monsters you get in the battle mode. Yeah. And then I have actual like personal memories where I used to bring my Saturn to school, and we would play Guardian Heroes, and
really?
I'd always pick pick the rat guy.
Are we talking like elementary school or high school?
No, we're talking about college here.
You bring it. Okay, you brought your Saturn to college. Damn. Oh, okay. All right, but not. So this would have been like after it was already retro, right?
I mean, we're talking 2001, 2002 era.
Okay, so like Xbox era. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause back at school, we had like a student area, and they had a huge, like 65-inch projection TV that nobody ever used. So my friends and I just hijacked it whenever we were on our like breaks or whatnot.
Yeah.
And we'd bring crowds in, but like I said, I'd always pick that little rat, and everybody else would be the huge monster guys wondering where I'm at. a lot of fun memories.
That game is a hell of a lot of fun. You just reminded me of that you could do that. That's great. Oh my god. Yeah, it's funny. I was in a 3D animation class in my senior year in high school, and that was right when the Xbox launched. And I had a friend in there who was like big into Photoshop and like 3ds Max and stuff, and he offloaded to me a ton of Saturn games that he didn't want because he was like interested in saving up and getting an Xbox, And that's where I got like Sonic R, and that's where I got Guardian Force from him. And it was easy to get Saturn games back then because people were just trying to get rid of them for cheap, just to pool their money and buy like a new console, So, but believe it or not, Blue Moon asked, are there seriously people that hate Guardian Heroes? Okay, so here's the thing. Without the nostalgia, without the memories, it's a tough sell on the Saturn for some folks. So, case in point, there's a dude, Chris Scram. He's the admin or the owner admin of the Sega Saturn Collectors of America group. And he is actually, He's the owner of the whole group. There are several groups. You know, there's a PlayStation group, a 3DO group, whatever. He's traditionally a PlayStation fan, came up as a PlayStation fan, and he's only getting into Saturn now. So he doesn't have the benefit of hindsight on Saturn or, you know, any kind of rose-colored glasses. He's taken everything as it is, right? And so he just tried to play Guardian Force. Sorry, not Guardian Force, Guardian Heroes. He did not like it at all. He was just like, you know, I know people gush about this game, and I'm trying to like it, but it's not for me. So I'm not going to add it to my collection. And everybody was like coming in the comments at him like, are you serious? Like it's a great game. Maybe try it on the Xbox Live Arcade or whatever. But it's like, if you don't have the memories and you're just sitting there alone in a room playing it by yourself, I could see how maybe it's just not the same. But like Knight is saying, like if you get together with some friends, which a lot of people don't really do anymore, which is kind of sad, but you get together with some friends on the couch and you just play, you have a lot of fun. It's a great game. Top 5
you
is...
could do that.
What's that, Zenos?
I didn't know you could do that. That might be a reason to pick it up again. But I thought it had really bad
Is he talking about him on mute?
He's talking... well, you can take him off mute, so you can say that. So I think Zenos is... I don't know if Zenos is coming through on the stream or if he's just coming through in Discord. But yeah, you can totally... You can totally play multiplayer with Guardian Heroes, I think up to 6 player via multi-tap. Knight would have to correct me on that.
Yeah, the playthrough itself is 2 players, but the battles are 6 players.
Yes. So I mean, it's a great game, and I think that it does play better on the Xbox Live Arcade version. It's much smoother. So I mean, and that's probably the way that folks should play it, or via emulation or something, because I mean, you know, the Saturn version is not cheap. But you know, what is it? Tom Jiggle85, you were saying top 5 is too hard, and I agree. Like, it's got to be more like a top 25 or something. I mean, even then, that's hard, you know. But yeah. Well, okay. So that answers any questions you guys might have. Keep them coming, and I will try to monitor the questions. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and... What's up?
No, nothing. I just wanted to say my first experience with Guardian Force. But we don't have to.
Guardian Heroes or Guardian Force? Okay.
Guardian Heroes. I had a bunch of legal copies on my Saturn, and I played it, and the scaling on the figures, like the characters, was traditionally bad for Saturn. Like they didn't have... I don't think they have distinct scaling options for all 3 planes, and the character art is not everybody's cup of tea.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's the treasure. It's like that treasure style art. And then on top of that, you've got so with the scaling, I know what you're talking about. Like where at some, like maybe at the mid level, you know, like the middle plane, it's like crisp and it's normal, you know. But then when they go to the back plane or when they come to the foreground plane, it's kind of aliased or like anti-aliased, I guess. I guess it's aliased because it doesn't apply any kind of anti-aliasing. So yeah, it looks a little janky. Know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and I mean for the Saturn, that kind of pops out at you because the Saturn usually has like really good crisp scaling. But yeah, for whatever reason, it does come off looking really aliased, and maybe that has to do with just how many sprites are on the screen. Maybe they just couldn't I don't know, maybe they couldn't address that and have it still run at a good click. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I think that's a good point. Getting into the news, and I mean, again, we don't have to stay like right on the news. If somebody has a topic they want to bring up, that's fine. We can just we're flying by the seat of our pants today. It's going to be very casual since Pat's not here to, you know, bounce things off of. But so Danthrax, he wrote up another little update on House of the Dead. Arrives on more platforms. So essentially, let's see, it arrived on Switch in early April, and then Forever Entertainment published the shooter on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Steam, GOG and Stadia. As of the Switch release, House of the Dead is available for a 10% launch discount or a 20% discount if Forever Entertainment's other Saturn-based remake, Panzer Dragoon, is owned on the same platform. Okay, so if you already own the Panzer Dragoon, then you get a discount on this. That's cool. PlayStation version offers 10% discount to PlayStation Plus subscribers. You can also get the Xbox version, Steam version, or the GOG version. That's cool. They're making it available despite what platform you happen to be on. So that's cool. I myself do not have it yet, but I am definitely thinking about it. It might end up being a gift, or I might end up grabbing. I don't know, but I've got a lot of things to spend money on right now. But anyway, it's good to know that it's available on multiple platforms, so folks can go grab that if they want to get some light gun action. They've also announced plans to remake sequels to Panzer Dragoon and House of the Dead, as well as Magical Drop 6, which would be the last in the line of puzzle games that saw 3 entries on the Saturn in Japan only. Magical Drop is a great series. I wish we had gotten it in the West. I really can't think of a good reason why not, because we had like stuff like Bust a Move and Puzzle Bobble and stuff like that. I don't know why, or Bubble Bobble. I don't know why we wouldn't have gotten stuff, like a game like Magical Drop, unless it was just overtly Japanese or something. I don't know. And okay, so let's see here. Going to just looking at the comments real quick, making sure I don't miss anything. Nick asks, is it possible to port games from one console to another? Wait, because I always felt like Mischief Makers would be perfect on Saturn. Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Mischief Makers is actually one of the... I don't like a whole hell of a lot of Nintendo 64 games, but it's on my list of games that I do like, and it's a treasure game, so it does make sense. It does kind of seem like it would have been a good one to get on Saturn, but I guess it was just like Mischief Makers on the N64.
No, the fact that you don't like a lot of N64 games, that is shocking. Why not?
Why not? Mostly it's just not my cup of tea when it comes to gameplay. Okay, so I have an N64, right? And I've given it a fair bit of love. My brother's a huge N64 fan. That's one thing I will say. Like back in the day, it always seems like he was much more about the N64 than I was. Now on the Nintendo 64, I do have a handful of games that I do like. Like I like Sin and Punishment. I do like the Zelda games, of course. Like Majora's Mask was my favorite, so you can kind of tell. Like I'm not as big of an Ocarina fan. I like Majora's Mask because it's darker and it's weirder. David Lynch stuff I was telling you about. Like I like things when they're kind of quirky and weird. And they do things with the story that you don't necessarily expect. I like that kind of stuff. I liked Wave Race, and I liked 1080 stuff like that. The gravity racing or whatever. What was it called? G Vector. I can't even remember. There were some racing games that were fun on there, but I mean, sorry. Mostly my N64 doesn't get played much. I have an EverDrive just loaded up, and it just doesn't really get played that much. I went to a few sleepovers and like high school lock-in kind of events things where we had like an N64 up on a huge projection screen, and we all played like GoldenEye, 4-player split screen GoldenEye with the whole screen looking and everything, and we played Star Fox, and that was fun. But for the most part, it's like I don't know, it's just not my cup of tea. I mean, I'm huge into Saturn, so you can tell like the differences between the two systems. If you're like a huge Saturn fan, you really love a lot of that like arcade style gameplay. You're not likely to be like super deep into N64, but I'm not saying it's trash or anything like that. Like I know that's like a running joke, but I don't actually believe that it's trash. There's not that many games that I want to play.
Like you liked
F-Zero is a great example of a good game. That's a good one. And of course, I loved it on GameCube.
I played N64 a lot, but I would have a hard time saying what defines it. Like, with Genesis, you have the typical Sega, more arcadey, actiony games, and with the SNES, you have all these RPGs and story-driven games, and also these what are called, these action RPGs. But I would have a hard time to put a finger on what defines N64 games. Maybe 3D platformers, but I don't know.
You know, like
it's mostly just you just say it's N64 games, like Rare, and
I mean, I don't want anybody to think I don't like Nintendo. Like, I freaking love Nintendo, okay? Like, just to give you an idea, like, Super Nintendo was my life before I got a Saturn, right? You know, so I loved the Super Nintendo. And then the Nintendo 64 came along, and I was going to get a Nintendo 64. I always tell folks I was standing in line to try Mario 64, you know, because I was super excited about it. And Knights just caught my attention, and I don't know. Like, it pulled me in a different direction, because the Super Nintendo games that I liked, that I was really into, were also kind of weird. You know, I mean, I did love Final Fantasy VI. I loved Shadowrun. I loved, I loved kind of games that were just like a little bit more artistic and stuff like that. And I don't know what it was about the N64. It just wasn't like, it didn't really do much for me. I loved the PlayStation and the Saturn a lot, because their ability to like tell stories, and their ability to like really give you like these vibes, you know, in the games that I just didn't get from Nintendo 64 games. What I did do, what fun I did have on Nintendo 64 was playing like Smash with my brother. Playing the Pokemon Snap was fun, you know, or the Pokemon Stadium. That was a lot of fun. Again, you know, Sin and Punishment would be like a holdout example of like something you would expect to play on the Saturn, but it was on N64, so that was cool. I don't know. Again, I want to actually bring my Nintendo 64 in here and set it up, but I have limited space, so it's like I'm trying to figure out how I can work it into my setup, because I do have the EverDrive, and you know, I might be able to get back into playing it and stream some games and stuff like that, but it's just not on the top of my list, basically. And then when the GameCube came out, oh my God, then I was crazy. So, you know, Dreamcast kind of fizzled out, and GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox were around, and I needed to pick a pony, and I went with the GameCube. I was just like, okay, GameCube feels the most to me like Sega did, like a Sega console did. And you had weird stuff on the GameCube. You had cool stuff. I mean, you had like, I don't know. I could get off. I feel like I'm going into the weeds here. But yeah, basically, like, I was huge into GameCube. Before and I was kind of prejudiced against like PlayStation 2 and Xbox. So I was like, look what you guys did to my, you know, my beloved Sega. You know, you basically ran them out of business, you know, because it certainly wasn't Nintendo's fault by that time. You know, Nintendo was in last place. So I just kind of latched onto the GameCube and kind of, you know, try to convince people to buy a GameCube, you know, because and then, of course, like, once I got a PlayStation 2, my eyes were open, and I was like, wow, I've been missing out on a shit ton of good gaming, you know. And now, and of course, I'm older and I've mellowed out, and I realize that it's not good to be prejudiced against any kind of, you know, there could be good gaming experiences had on every platform, you know. So I'm not like a super, you know, fanboy these days. Even though my name is SaturnDave, and I do love Saturn, and I always will, I'm not like, you know, a blind fanboy. Anyway,
I didn't want to throw shade on N64, but I used to be a huge Nintendo fanboy, and N64 is maybe my favorite console of all times. But also, so you didn't think that the Xbox was kind of the spiritual successor to the Dreamcast or to the Sega consoles?
In hindsight, I realized that it probably was the most likely. In fact, I almost feel like it was almost shady. Like, I kind of buy into the conspiracy that, you know, the whole Windows CE embedded in the Dreamcast, and that Microsoft was just kind of like biding their time, you know, until they like took over the world. Like I almost feel like Sega didn't realize like that they were maybe sleeping with the enemy there. And again, like the market only ever had space for 3 players. You know, it just seems like that's all it will bear is like 3 major players, and 2 will always be dominant, and 1 will always be kind of scrapping or having to do something completely different, which is where Nintendo is now. They've found that they're you got the 2 major players who are just all about graphics and blockbuster AAA titles. And in order to have that third space, the other guy has to either come in way in last place, like the GameCube, or they have to figure out a way to create different gaming experiences that make them unique and make people want to play them. But man, 4 major consoles at the same time, it was just seriously, and I was working in retail at that time, so I can honestly remember what it was like trying to sell Dreamcasts, you know, being a Dreamcast fan and like trying to sell Dreamcasts. And it was like, even though they were cheap, it was like people acted like they had like a disease or something. They were just like, oh no, that's okay, we'll wait for the PlayStation 2 even though we can't buy it right now. You know, it's kind of crazy. But Dreamcast, by the way, it takes the spot for like my second favorite of all time, but that's tied with Nintendo DS, believe it or not, because for crazy reasons. I don't know. Nintendo DS has some really, really cool 32-bit gaming experiences on it, and a lot of them are very Saturn-esque.
I played a lot of Dreamcast on disc before I played any other Sega console, and it's my second favorite Sega console, directly after the Sega Genesis, because after I got that and my Everdrive and I heard the soundtrack, which I argue with JC Dogan a lot of, I fell in love with the Sound Blaster like sound, and now it's my favorite 16-bit console. Yeah. That's my yeah.
Which one is that?
The Mega Drive.
The Mega Drive. Okay, yeah. Mega Drive is amazing. Genesis Mega Drive. It's an amazing console as well. I will say this for Nintendo 64 before we move on, and I just want, for the record, when Nintendo 64 when Ultra 64, you know, was finally revealed, and we saw what it looked like. As a kid, I just thought it was so freaking cool. Like, I thought it looked, the aerodynamic, almost like sports car design of it was like no other game console that I had ever seen. And it's funny because even though now I would say I prefer the Saturn, it's like sleek and black and just beautiful, and definitely looks like a nice pricey piece of hi-fi equipment or something. You know, it's like it's more of an adult's console, but the N64, just as a kid, was probably like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. You know, they just I don't know, whoever designed it did a really good job, I think. And I mean, like, that it was designed to like sit on those pillars with the HDD, or not the HDD, but the 64DD. I thought that was really cool too. It kind of reminded me of the 3DO, to be honest. With the original 3DO kind of had those 4 pillars. But of course they went with like this really like kind of almost like Ferrari Modena kind of, you know, really cool lines on that console. So anyway,
I don't really like the N64 design, or the Saturn design is okay, but I like the PlayStation design the best. Fair
enough. When the PlayStation came out, it was like also like nothing else I'd ever seen. I mean, yeah, like it was boxy, but it had that huge lid, and it's kind of flat. It was like very flat and squat, and had those huge buttons. And I do remember going into an EB and seeing it for the first time, and just being like, "Wow, this is incredibly different." You know, it's easy to take all of this stuff for granted now, but like back in the day, just seeing these things for the first time, it was just like incredibly unconventional, and the memory card slots and everything, it's kind of like nothing else I'd ever seen. We got a half hour to go, and I want to get through the next few bits. Okay. So we're moving right along here. We've got write-up from Peter. It's a short one. It's the Best of Saturn write-up, where he just is starting conversation, basically. Metal Fighter Miku. Metal Fighter Miku is part visual novel, part quick time event adventure style Fudu wrestling game based on the 13-episode 1994 anime set in the year 2061, where wrestlers wear futuristic armor. You play as Miku, part of the Pretty Four tag team, and bid to win the Neo Pro Wrestling World title. Take on opponents such as Mad Kong and many others. This delightful game is a prime example of the Saturn shining culturally in its native country in a way that would never really work in the West. And actually, I have to say, like, this one came out of left field for me. I'm guessing that obviously Metal Fighter Miku is like a localized or like translated name, because I'm thinking that this is probably one of those games that I've seen on lists, like on archive.org, and I've probably passed it up because I had no idea what it was. Now that I'm seeing it, it looks amazing, at least from an artwork standpoint. Like, the artwork looks amazing. Kind of reminds me of the Lunar artwork, and it's very crisp. I don't know anything about this game, nor can I speak to it knowledgeably whether it's actually any good, but I mean, Peter has good taste. So if he says, I will say Peter tends to be forgiving of a lot of these older games, you know, taking everything kind of in perspective. But I mean, I think if he says it's delightful, then it's something I probably need to check out. So Metal Fighter Miku. Let me know in the comments if you guys have played this and if you think it's any good. And Blue Moon says he'd love a Wonder Mega. Closest thing he had to it was the JVC XI. Yeah, both of those were really rad. I always wanted a JVC XI growing up, but man, since I've seen the Wonder Mega, that thing is just amazing. Like with the ring that's lit up and everything. Yeah, those things are just insane. And okay, let's see. Yeah, so yeah, Jiggle is saying, you know, put it on your satiator. So yeah, I'm probably gonna have to do that. I need to update my firmware on my satiator anyway, because incidentally, I've only just now, this past week, I've been plugging in. Each day I get a little bit of free time, and I've been plugging in a new console and testing it out and calibrating the monitor for it and everything. And so I've got Saturn, I've got 3DO, and I've got my Neo Geo CDZ plugged in. Next, I'm going to do probably like Dreamcast, get the PlayStation 2 plugged in, the PlayStation. So I've been going one system at a time, and I did look at my satiator firmware, and it's a bit out of date since I moved. So now that I got it plugged back in, I definitely need to get the latest firmware, which I believe is 159, with all the fixes and everything. And then I need to grab this game as well so I can give it a shot. But looks cool. Victor Entertainment. So yeah, I don't know. I think as a community, we all need to try this game together and let each other know what we think. Because honestly, I wish I could say that I'd played this, but I have not. So I love finding out about new games on Saturn, though. Much as I think I know about this console, what happens is I tend to play through a lot of Japanese games. But I kind of usually am like checking out YouTube or checking out, you know, translations of the names and stuff like that to see if it's something I'm interested in. But I tell you, every once in a while, there's a game that I overlook and that it completely takes me by surprise. Hokkaido was one of those games. The shooting, that like shooting adventure game, Hokkaido, that we talked about with on the podcast with Jason Steele. That was one that took me by surprise. And this one, who knows? This may be one of those games that kind of takes me by surprise. The VM2 for Dreamcast was announced. It's an SD card based Dreamcast VMU. That is freaking amazing. Like, if this really like ties into Dreamcast and like works and is compatible with Dreamcast, and yet it's got like this much larger LCD and it can take SD cards, that's just crazy. Like, I can't even imagine the potential here. And I know this isn't you know, Saturn related necessarily, but I mean, we cover Dreamcast stuff here too, especially when it's as big a deal as this. So as many of you typically know, VMUs, while they're a cool concept of a memory card, they have a couple problems. The biggest, or not the biggest, depending on how you look at it, issue are many of them are not having large storage sizes. They don't have large storage size. So you might end up getting like the aftermarket ones with like several more blocks on them, but they usually don't have like a screen. Games like Half-Life, for example, will take up your entire VMU save, causing you to hunt down another VMU or sacrifice the game to the Dreamcast gods in order to keep your precious Shenmue save. I like this. Pat wrote this up, I think. Yeah. The other major issue plaguing the device is that the battery life is short. And that's why you get the little beep every time you turn on your Dreamcast. So familiar. Taking that thing on the go and playing mini games will only last a short duration before you're popping in another battery in order to play with your Chow. Thankfully, Chris, I'm gonna murder this name here. Diaoglu, I don't know. Chris Diaoglu, the man behind the awesome Dreamcast devices such as the Dreamcom, a wireless Dreamcast controller, has announced a SD card-based VMU for the Dreamcast that not only addresses the original VMU shortcomings, but is loaded with even more features, which include a backlit LCD screen with higher resolution, 48 by 32 resolution, or scaled 96 by 64. Micro SD card slot gives the Dreamcast a massive storage capacity. Effectively infinite. No, like not literally infinite, but effectively, I mean, considering the sizes of these things. But I mean, you could download like all of the extra content, you know, from PSO, you know. Let's see here. 4x VMU backup. If no micro SD card is inserted, it will default to a 4x memory card mode, just like Sega's official card. Let's see here. External battery charging. Charge your VMU with either USB cable or the Dreamcast controller. And PC Memory Manager. Manage and back up all your Dreamcast saves on your PC. Very, very cool. Chris is currently looking at the $100 price tag for the device. Honestly, that's not that bad. For what this is, for what this does, I can't imagine you're going to need more than one. Unless you do normally play with two players, and then you might want to get one for the second controller. But I mean, this is one device ought to do you. While it may seem expensive, the ability to use one VMU with your console and backup saves to your PC is worth the price of entry. I would have to agree. I think this is good. Plus, you got to support the guy. He's doing this kind of cool stuff. You know, if he says it's $100, then it's $100. You know. No date set for release, but keep following the project closely. There's a link here. Big thanks to the Dreamcast Junkyard for bringing this to our attention. Yes, we're huge fans of the Dreamcast Junkyard. Knight, you still on? You have anything to say about this?
I'm not a Dreamcast guy, so
not a Dreamcast
I have nothing to say.
Like, you're not even a Dreamcast guy, like, at all?
At all. I got my Dreamcast in a closet somewhere, and my games are in my basement somewhere.
And you're going to send them to me, right?
Sure. When I find them, like 50 years from now.
Nice. I'm taking you up on that. I cannot believe it. Okay, I'm not going to give you any flack for that, but seriously, what is wrong with you? Anyway. No, anyway.
That's why I keep busting on Derek for being a traitor.
Yeah, Derek, if he was here, I'm sure he'd have a thing or two to say about this, but but yeah, no, I mean, all I can do is imagine, like, I probably will be getting one of these, like, for sure. Don't know if I'll be in that first list, you know, that first batch. As far as, like, where it falls on my priority list, I don't know, but definitely I'm going to get one of these for sure. Maybe when it's, like, on a later firmware and it's, like, a well-established product, I'll probably be picking one up, because I am sick and tired of firing up my Dreamcast and having that beep every time, you know? And I mean, like, I keep changing the battery, but those things just suck batteries. And the fact that your controller can charge them and everything, that's great. But yeah, so what?
The thing that you probably would have to be set to this this SD card reader you could attach via the proprietary external port on the back, which basically does the same thing when you combine it with the homebrew
Right.
Windows
Shell?
style Dream Shell, the Windows style operating system.
Sure. Yeah. But the fact that this is going to be much more convenient. I mean, I think what they're implying here is that you're going to be able to just yoink the SD card out and pop it into your PC. And I mean, you're not going to have to use that extra software. That's just going to work. It's going to be compatible with actual Dreamcast software, and you can save.
No, it's not. What I'm saying is not to throw shade. It's just to say how you used to do it. I've been trying to solder one of these. The way they describe it online, it's really a hassle. You can buy one, I think, but it's also quite expensive to buy one pre-made, like hacked.
Really?
So
yeah, I've got one. I think it cost me like $5 or something like that. But
really?
Yeah, really. I mean, it's one of those, it's one of those cheap little. It kind of looks like a thumb drive, but it says Dream Shell on it, and it's got the proprietary Dreamcast serial connector on the back. I don't remember the last time that I used it, but yeah, it works. And it's true what you say. Like you can dump all of your saves onto that and then put them over on the PC, vice versa, but and that's another way that you can actually get all of the downloadable content, for games onto your VMUs that way. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that's how we've been doing it. That's how a lot of folks have been doing it up to this point, all managing saves and stuff like that. And now it looks like we're going to have a much more elegant solution. So
yes, definitely.
Last but not least, today we went ahead and pre-released our digital Sega Saturn Shiro magazine that we've been working on for ever and a day. Honestly, it's been much longer than it should have been. And I do apologize to folks for that. It really just comes down to wanting it to be the best that it could be, but also getting caught up with life and priorities that just come first, So it's like, I can't tell you how many times I've had to just push back the goalposts constantly on this magazine. And it was foolish of me to tease it like back in September. It was foolish of me to tease it back then. I was so naive thinking that we could get it out, but there was more that needed to be done, And one thing I noticed, and one thing that I learned with publishing and everything like this, you can never add one page, because of course when it comes to print, every piece of paper is folded and it has 4 sides, right? So if you're adding 1 page, you're actually adding 4 pages, which means you need content for those 4 pages. So it's like, when you need to take something out, you can't just take one thing out. You either have to replace it or you have to take out 4 pages. So yeah, and then learning everything about saddle stitch and learning everything about perfect bind and formatting and layout and all that stuff. And I'm telling you, this magazine is far from perfect, but it's free as a community service, and it's just something that Peter and I and actually by extension the Shiro crew, because Pat stepped in and Nick stepped in and they helped out as well, and they wanted to be involved in it. It's something that we wanted to do, and we've wanted to do for years, is like make our own magazine and have resurrect, in a way, I guess spiritually resurrect OSSM in a way. You could probably see from the way that it looks, it is I'm going to click on it here and see if I can. Okay. Oh, there we go. Click on this here. And I just need to hide this while I'm putting in the password. Let's see here. All right, so I'm loading it up for you guys to see. We basically have this available to our Patreon supporters for like a week exclusively before it hits public. There's a link to download the actual full size if you click on the barcode on the front, or you can just go ahead and click through the magazine and kind of. Here's Peter's letter, talking about being a Saturn fan in 2022. And how it's never a better time to be a Saturn fan, just because of all the cool stuff that's going on in the community. We got a little Back to the Future kind of retrospective on Saturn's troubled past, and polled a bunch of people in our community This is total speculation, but we're just seeing what folks think was like the number one thing that killed it, or one thing that they would go back and change. So it's just a fun puff piece, but it was fun to write. Some little faux ads that were fun to make, for like Shiro Show. Pat did a little write up on the lunar patch. And I actually think that folks in our community think that it would be great if he just had his own little column called Patched, and that would be his thing. So yeah, I'm totally down with that. He was gonna do the patched column anyway, so we can name it after him. But yeah, so Pat's going to be the one that usually does like a little one-page write-up on new patches, and hopefully in our next issue he might actually cover a couple more than just one. I went ahead and put the Shenmue Saturn version, search continues, just talking about the history of Saturn Shenmue and just the fact that it may be out, that it's most likely out there somewhere. I imagine Yu Suzuki has a copy probably, but there's probably more than one copy, based on the citations that we have here in the article. And so there's a little speculation here, which is why this column is entitled Retro Speculation. But we got some, again, fun ads that I did, just showing, a little bit of paying a little homage to the classic Saturn ads, but at the same time featuring all the new retro or all the new homebrew games that the community is creating, homebrew and patches translations, which are
Dave, you need to call it patch trick.
Patch trick. Okay, well, I'll let you guys we'll do a poll or something like that. You guys can decide. Is that Derek?
No, it's Burn Ends.
Oh, that's Burn Ends. Okay, all right. You almost sounded like Derek there for a second, because you're in a car or something like that. Let me see. Peter wrote this amazing article. I've been like talking this thing up for years. This is an older article, but we went ahead and kind of dressed it up and put it in this, because I feel like it's like, if you really want to decide what the best hockey game on the Saturn is, what better way than to do like a proper shootout? And so Peter really did. He like pitted all these games and gave us like definitive answers on like what is the best hockey game on the Saturn. And there are actually some really good hockey games on the Saturn. And who better to write about it, because he's from Canada. Got a Fenrir ad in here. Shouts to Sed and shouts to the Fenrir. Great product. Well, we're not paid to put this here. This is just a wholehearted community endorsement. We feel like products like this are helpful and they're beneficial to all of us. So we feel very confident to put it in here and as an endorsement, but we're not receiving anything for it. We did an article on Wipeout, kind of from the perspective that it's now on Saturn, and that's kind of how you looked at it back then. It was like this amazing like PlayStation games finally coming to Saturn, and we're excited for like what it's going to be, how well is it going to come over, how well it translate, and Peter really covers that well here. Shiro podcast, that's Sega Saturn Shiro.podbean.com, or wherever you get your podcast feed, you can listen. We've got the Shiro Show, and then which is the weekly news, and then we've got the mainline cast, which is serial content, like talking about games, going deep dives, five guys just talking about Saturn. It's a lot of fun. We need to do another one of those soon, because we haven't had one on the schedule for a while. People have been busy, but I did go ahead and put a bulk / English translation and dub ad in here, because you guys did such a great job, and got a QR code to take folks to your project there. And so definitely glad to feature that here. Of course, the cover article is A Bug's Life. And we kind of do a deep dive into the game and what made it unique. And then an interview, like a really cool interview with David Warhol, just talking about making of the game, working at Real Time Associates, what they called the Sega away team, or the Tiger team. And I think when you boot up Bug, you actually do see Saturn away team. It was actually Real Time Associates. There were just a handful of companies that were kind of given that moniker, or that honorary title, but they were really third-party companies. So you got that, and then of course we got a Satiator ad, because we're also like super thrilled about Satiator. I'm a Satiator owner. I love it. I think it's a great product, and shouts to Abrasive for bringing that to the community. And of course, we got a homebrew article about Hellslave. Pandemonium. Nick wrote this up, and he did an amazing job. And then, of course, we followed up with a developer interview with XL2, just talking about Saturn development, the quirks and everything like that. And again, more Saturn development. We've got Wilfredo Abidjan, Missalon talking Noah and the Paludis, and that was a fun interview to do as well, as article to write up for the magazine. And then we also got a price guide, and that's kind of more of a joke. I mean, it's like, what good are these prices? But it's more like a time capsule, like a snapshot of, if you're looking back on this magazine 10 years from now and you pull it off the shelf, you can kind of just quickly see like what prices we're doing when it was released, you know? It's not that inclusive though. So I think in our next issue, we'll go all out, and we'll have like a UK, we'll have a Japanese one. That's going to be like a few pages. And then of course, Retrobit controllers, which I think a lot of us, they're not perfect, but they're a great solution, and they're cheap, and they're available. And so I think they're a great stand-in controller. If you don't happen to have an OEM controller, I do recommend the Retrobit 2.4 gigahertz. They do a good job. There are some little niggles, little things that I would love to see improved on them. But again, I mean, you know, for $30, 30 to 40, depending on where you go, I think that it's a good solution. And I own two of them, and I use them a lot, especially for like, for RPGs and stuff like that. Easy recommend. For shooters and stuff, fighters, you know, you don't want to go too hard on the D-pad, because that can be, you know, I've heard people breaking their D-pad. That was not a paid advert. No, that was, Martin Evans asks if any of these were paid adverts. This is a fanzine. We don't get any money for these things. Pat and I, and leadership, we talked about like, what are some products that we feel would be good to recommend to the community, you know? And we do have a relationship with Retrobit, honestly, to be honest with you, we do. And they have sent us some things, including some Retrobit pads, which we've reviewed. And the first ones, we reviewed them honestly, and we took issue with quite a few things, you know, and then they improved those things in a second revision, you know. But we were not paid to put this in our magazine. We feel like this benefits the community, knowing that they have an option, that they have options now that they can go out and buy a good serviceable Saturn pad. And maybe they should have paid big bucks for that. But the thing is, that would kind of, I feel like if they paid us for it, it would kind of spoil our credibility a little bit, right? You know? But yeah, so essentially this magazine is free to the community, and we poured a ton of blood, sweat, and tears into making it, and we didn't receive a dime for it. But I guess you could say my reward is that it exists, you know? So like it went from not existing to now it's out there, and it's something that I feel like I can be proud of. It's something that Peter and I and Pat and Nick, we made together, and hopefully for subsequent issues, you know, we can pull more of the community in and get them involved. Because I know there's quite a few folks that sound like they're interested in being involved in this project. So, and since this is a magazine made by fans for fans, it's appropriate that we include the fans. And that's it. That's my spiel about the magazine. Oh God, if I'm clicking the back button and it's literally going through each page, that's not good. Well, anyway, I'm just gonna turn off the web browser now, since we're done with that. And yeah, so let me just see if I've missed any comments, any questions. Anybody want to ask me anything? Price guide. Oh no, you're killing me. Yeah, seriously. The price, like I say, that somebody, you're not wrong. I mean, Saturn prices are just pretty much a joke these days, you know. The beer is gone. Well, no, now hold on a second. That's how the beer is. The beer is gone. But it's good. It was like a let's see, Sierra Madre Lager, Mother Earth Brewing. Yeah, it's time for another beer. I'm gonna actually do pizza and a movie with my kids, so I will be. But yeah, so let's see. Did I miss anything? Thank you for the support, you guys. Thank you for all the great comments on the magazine. I'm sure that you guys are going to find things. I'm sure you guys are going to find things that are probably, not perfect with it, but I'm hoping that that we can just continue to improve with each iteration. Anyway, without further ado, I guess it's time for me to list off our Patreon supporters. Oh, you know what? I wanted to tell you guys. I wanted to say, and I'm going to bring up the thing again. I'm going to bring up the webpage. Hold on a second. Let me see. I do want to say one thing. You will notice that in the magazine here, on the table of contents right here, the Patreon supporters are actually listed like right there. It says Patreon support, and all of you guys who were Patreon supporters as of the time of our release of this, you're listed in this magazine. Your name is there. So, which I think is great, because that means you guys are, you were a part of making this happen, So we really do appreciate all of our Patreon supporters. And we've actually got some new ones. So I'm going to read off to you guys our Patreon supporters, okay? So just recently we got King Ghidra just joined at the top tier mark, and we also had what was it? It was we also had another brand new, what was it? Dascanny Man. Dascanny Man. I don't want to murder these names. We had another new Patreon supporter, and that was James Mann. And we also had, let's see here, 2 different lists I'm looking at here. So I believe that's it since the last time, since Pat read them off last time. So those were our new supporters. Of course, King Ghidra, who just signed up recently, signed up at the $10. So I'm going to read his name off, along with Robert Ramsey, Nutrageous, Blue Moon 95, Tanuki Trev, Johannes Fetz, Derek Pascarella, A-Team, Momdu Madar, or Momfus, Emerald Nova, and Young Money Swee, or SWE. Does that stand for Sweden? Or does that stand for something else? I've always wondered about that. I think at one point I said Young Money Sweden because I just assumed that SWE standed for Sweden. But anyway, those are our top tier supporters. We really do appreciate you guys. We actually appreciate all of you guys that are contributing anything to this show, anything to Shiro. We seriously have, because of your support, because of your contributions, we have just about enough to afford that print run of the magazine, which is what, how we're going to afford to pay for the printing of it. And then of course we'll be able to hopefully sell it to you guys at cost. Like, we're not really looking to make any money off of it. We're just looking to pass it on to you guys. But aside from that, I do have your names listed in the credits for your support. And if you can't afford to support us monetarily, no worries. We really do appreciate the monetary support, but we also appreciate the love and the shouts and the shares. If you feel like sharing us with a friend that you think might like our content, please do. And invite them to join our Discord community as well, because we're not just a show or a magazine or whatever. We're a community, and we're all about like just having you guys come and be a part of it, and it can kind of just be like a little place away from all the chaos. You can just come and hang out with us and have fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously, which is a good thing, I think. And we're all like huge Saturn fans and huge Sega fans, so come be a part of our Discord server and have some fun. And until next time, this is SaturnDave reminding you to go play your Sega Saturn. Peace out.
セガサターンシロ